Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning. Welcome to the lecture today on fluid kinematics in this course fluid mechanics. Today we will be discussing about the topic fluid kinematics, in which we are going to talk about the flow or the motion of the fluid without considering the forces which drives this motion. So we have already discussed in the previous lectures fluid statics, in which we have considered fluid at rest, and we have analyzed how the pressures are calculated, how the forces are calculated when the fluid is static. Now, in fluid kinematics, we will be discussing the motion of the fluid without considering the forces or energy. Alright. So, in this lecture, you should be able to understand the description of fluid motion, acceleration of fluid flow, streamlines, path lines, streak lines. You will also be able to understand types of fluid motion, velocity and circulation, continuity equation. In addition, you will also be able to understand various concepts of streamline function or various stream functions and potential functions, which basically gives rise to streamlines or equipotential lines. So in today's lecture, we will cover only the first three, and in the consecutive lectures, we will take the other aspects. So let us now look at, first of all, some basic concepts. When we look at the fluid, you take a domain. In this domain, we know that you will be able to define various properties. You can define what is the density, what is the pressure, what is the velocity at each point in the fluid domain. And we should know whether it is a scalar or it is a vector. So, which are the properties which are scalar and what is the property of a scalar? So, scalar is a quantity which can be expressed by a single number representing its magnitude. So, scalar is a magnitude only, and we can define that anywhere in the fluid domain. So, if you take typically mass, density or temperature or pressure, they are all scalar. So typically if you look at this figure which is shown here, let us say I have shown this circle here which is denoted as P, that is pressure. So it is a scalar, it does not have any direction. Okay. Now if I start defining this value all through the domain at each point, okay, so then I will call it as a scalar field. So if at every point in a region the scalar function or the scalar values are defined, then the region is called a scalar field. So what we have seen here is a discrete point, but in a continuous fluid you have every location the value. So it could be the distribution of temperature, distribution of pressure all over the domain. Now similarly we also have vector. What is vector? Vector is a quantity which is specified by both magnitude as well as direction. So if you have a force or velocity or displacement, you should know the magnitude as well as the direction of it. If the force, then what is the magnitude of the force and in which direction it is acting? We have already seen that in fluid statics. So you need to know the magnitude as well as direction. So if you look at this figure, typically the velocities are shown here. Let us say I have shown the u velocity at this location, or both the velocities can exist at a location obviously. So if I show u that is acting in this direction with certain magnitude, and I'll also have the velocity v in the vertical direction that is with some other magnitude or could be same magnitude in the direction that is vertical. So you should have the velocity with magnitude and direction. If I find out the resultant velocity, it will also have some magnitude as well as the direction. So In case of vector, we will have both magnitude and direction. For example, you will have the velocity field. So completely over the domain, you will be able to understand how the velocity is varying at all the locations. Now, if you have the total domain and the velocities are defined at each point, then you call it as a velocity or the vector field. Okay. So, if we have the region in which the flow parameters such as velocities, pressure, all other parameters, let us say temperature and so on, these are defined at each and every point at any given instant of time, we call it as a flow field. So in a flow, you will have velocities, you will have pressure, you may have other properties of the fluid. So that you call it as a flow field. Okay? So having understood this, now let us try to understand how we describe or how we represent the fluid motion. So when we talk about fluid motion, we have basically two different types of fluid motion. One is Lagrangian method or Lagrangian way of representation. There is Eulerian frame of reference, Eulerian way of or Eulerian method of representation or reference. So Lagrangian method, which was developed in 1788 or something. So Lagrange, who survived from 1736 to 1813, is the one who developed this. And in Lagrangian frame of reference, you look at the fluid particle motion as an observer and follow the fluid particle as it moves. So, for an example, here I have shown you the movement of a kite. Many of you have flown kite during some seasons. So, what happens? You are standing here and your kite is flying somewhere here. You are holding this rope. Okay. Now the kite is moving. So what do you do at that time? You keep watching the kite, how it moves. So basically, if I assume that the kite is just a fluid particle and I track how the fluid particle is moving. Alright. So the kite is basically flown or it is moving by the wind. So the wind velocity or the fluid particle, let us say around the kite, is taking this kite from one location to other. So basically that parcel of the fluid is moving. Now if I assume that I am tracking that fluid particle, then I can tell that I am actually following the Lagrangian frame of reference. Okay, because I am tracking that particle or that fluid mass, that fluid element as it moves in time from one location to other. Similarly, when I want to look at the other frame of reference, that is the Eulerian frame of reference, in this I have a single specific domain and I am focused in that domain. So typically, let us say in this flow, this is a typical flow, and in this flow, if I consider there is a flow taking place, and in this flow, I can see that I have a specific window, and in this window, when the fluid is coming, I am observing what is happening within this window. I am not tracking the fluid particle as it moves from one location to all the way to the other location. I am just tracking what is the change or what is the flow behavior within this specific domain or frame of my reference. So when I am analyzing that, then I call it a Eulerian frame of reference. Alright. So the Eulerian frame of reference is a way of looking at fluid motion that focuses on specific location in space through which the fluid flows at time as time passes. You are not following the fluid. Anything that comes in, you observe that. Anything that goes out, you observe that. And what is happening within the domain. But you don't follow the fluid particle beyond the space that or the window that you have defined. You don't go with the fluid. So this is the difference between Lagrangian and Eulerian frame of reference. Alright. So now let us try to understand slightly more on Lagrangian method or Lagrangian frame of reference. As we discussed, the fluid motion is described by tracing the kinematic behavior of each particle. We are not talking about the force. We are talking about its motion. We are talking about the kinematic behavior of each particle constituting the flow. Okay. So in this, if you See, the identities of the particles are made by specifying their initial position. So you tracked where it started, how it moved, and where it went. So you are tracking the particle, or you are identifying the particle from its initial position or the spatial location at a given time. And as you move in time, you find out what is the new position of this particle. So the initial position is, let us say, S0. Okay, so S0, that specifies the initial position at a given time. Let us say that is time t equals to t0. All right. Now, if we have that, this position of the particle at any other instant of time can become a function of this initial position, or the identity of initial position and time, how it has moved and what was the initial position. So that I can write down as S, which is the new position, is a function of S0 is the initial position and time t. Okay. So if we have that, here S is nothing but the position vector of a particle with respect to fixed point of reference at time t equals to t1. So this t1 could be your time t0 plus delta t. Okay, and delta t you can keep on varying. So in this case, let us say I want to find out the position this particle. Let us say I have the particle here, and that is my initial position S0. So at delta t, the particle is going to move some other location. So I'll use the delta t and find out with respect to this location in delta t how it has moved and what is the new position. So that I will consider as my initial position next. Then with respect to this position, I will find out the new position. So I'll keep on tracking this particle and keep moving as it goes. Okay. So now let us try to understand how the equation can be written. We have written the S equals to function of S0t. If I write in all directions x, y and z, then I'll be able to write down the new position x is nothing but my I think it is a function. So x is a function of x0, y0, z0 and time t. Similarly, y is also a function of the initial position and t, z is also a function of initial position and t. So where x0, y0, z0 are the initial coordinates, x, y, z are the coordinates at after a time delta t, or at a new time step, that is t equals to t1. Okay. So if I write down the vectorial form of this expression, I can write down S as ix plus jy plus kz, where I, j, k are the unit vectors in the respective directions x, y, z. Okay. So S is given like this, and I can write down the velocity now, that is v is equals to ds by dt. We know the velocity is your distance per time. So ds divided by dt is your velocity vector, and that you are taking with reference to, you are calculating with reference to S0, that is the initial position. And if you want to write down now the acceleration from this, we can find out what is the acceleration of the fluid. So acceleration is the velocity per time. Okay. So if I write that, I can write down it is going to be d square s divided by dt square. Okay. So once we know the expression or the initial position with respect to, we can write down what is the expression for the s, or the distance that has traveled, or the new position, and from that we can find out the velocity. We can also find out the acceleration. So we can find out the flow properties. All right. So now let us look at a typical example. So if you look at this, we can see that in this there was, I'll just pause it here. So you see there is some kind of oil spill, let us say, in the ocean. There is some oil spill, and this oil is going to move in the ocean due to the flow of tide, waves and so on. So there is a fluid flow. So there is a fluid flow, and this fluid flow is taking these oil particles as it moves. Okay. So we can see that the particles that are present here, they are moving as we go along time. So time is moving here, and as the time moves, these oil particles are moving with the fluid. So basically, the fluid particle is moving, and that is taking the oil particles from one location to other location. So this is nothing but your Lagrangian flow or Lagrangian motion when you are tracking the particle. All right. And what are the advantages here? Since the motion and trajectory of each particle of the fluid or each fluid particle is known, its history can be traced. So let's say I want to know if my oil spill has reached at this location. Okay. If my oil spill has reached at this location and I know the fluid flow motion or the fluid characteristics, flow characteristics before that. So using that, I can find out how this particle would have come from, or how this particle would have moved and where it would have come from. So I can trace out the original location. Or if I have the fluid particles here, the oil spill that is here, and I know how the fluid is going to move, then I can track how these particles are going to move or oil spill is going to move, where it is going to reach, or which coast or which location it is going to affect or pollute. So accordingly, the precautionary measures or the measures to prevent such kind of disasters can be taken. All right. So without spending more time on that, let us move to the next advantage. Since the particles are identified at start and traced throughout their motion, the conservation of mass is inherent. So basically, when you talk about the flow and its Lagrangian motion, you are tracking the particle, and complete throughout its motion, you are tracking the particle where it moves, how it goes. So you are not losing out anything. So you don't distract yourself from that particular particle. So nothing is lost. So mass is conserved. So in Lagrangian method, Lagrangian frame of reference, conservation of mass is inherent. Now let us understand the other method, that is Eulerian frame of reference. In this frame of reference, you don't have to track individual particle. So what happens if you track individual particle? Now if I have some air pollution and I know the air pollution that is happening here is coming from 500 kilometers away from this location. So I have to really track from the original location till this location to find out what is really happening. Or if I want to say there is a uh, plant here and some kind of pollution is coming out of this plant, I want to find out where all it can reach. So I have to keep on tracking the particle or the pollution as it moves along the wind and see where it reaches. So now that is going to take quite a large domain, or my uh, frame of reference that I have to really consider, or domain that I have to consider is going to be quite large. But I really don't want that because that's going to be difficult. So in such cases, I may take the interest domain or region of interest and fix my domain, understand the properties, and then find out where it has come or what is happening and what is the behavior. So these kind of methods are really applicable in many cases. We'll see that. So basically what you need here, you need the velocity and its variation with time at each and every location within the flow field or within the domain that you have selected. So that is the frame of reference. Okay. So once you have these two, you can view all hydrodynamic parameters as function of location and time. So again, we have the domain in that at each location and at each time, how the parameters, hydrodynamic parameters, that's the velocities, pressures, or any other flow properties, how they are varying. So now mathematically, if I want to write down, I can write down velocity v is a function of s and t. And in this case, if I want to write down the uh, velocity in terms of the spatial coordinates or the position, then I can write down the ds by dt is nothing but my velocity v, right? And if I have that, I know already s is a function of, or the position wherever the particle is a function of the initial position s0 and t. So the integration of the above equation yields the constant of integration which can be found from the initial coordinates, that is the s0 and t initial coordinate is your constant, and based on that you can find out the new position. And this basically links the Lagrangian method. So Lagrangian method or Lagrangian frame of reference can always be derived from the Eulerian expression. So the advantage is you can get back the Lagrangian frame or Lagrangian description from the Eulerian description also. Now let us look at this. This is again another video which basically shows you the Eulerian method. See, you have this window through which you are watching what is really happening outside, and you see that this uh, through this there is a flow which is taking place, there is wind, there is water, all this motion and all these properties you can visualize how it is changing as you move in time. All right, okay. So now, having understood this, let us try to understand how we can write down the accelerations and material derivative. So we know the properties. Let us say we know the velocities in the domain. Once we know the velocities in the domain, we should be able to write down the accelerations. So let us see what are they depend on. And the velocity is a function of the material derivative and acceleration. The velocity is a function of what? X, Y, Z and time t. So if I want to write down the accelerations in respective directions x, y, z and t. So in x, my acceleration ax is going to be a function of velocity, so du by dt, that is the acceleration. Now u is a function of x, y, z and t. So if I want to write down the partial derivative of that, let us look at this. So here you have ax equals to du by dt. U is a function of x, y, z and t. So if you write down the partial derivative of that, you should be able to write down that du by dt is equals to dou u by dou t plus u dou u by dou x plus v dou u by dou y plus w dou u by dou z. So this is your temporal acceleration. So basically, now let us see, there is some temperature in this room, and I am trying to tell that the temperature, how it changes. Okay, so if I say this is my fluid particle and this particle is going to move from this location to another location. Now I want to understand the change that has happened when the particle moves from this location to this location. It could be in any property. Okay, so let me say it is, I am talking about the temperature. So in case of temperature, when the particle is moving from this location to this location, then at this new location there is a change of temperature. And what is that change? In x direction there is some movement, so there is a change in the x direction. What is that? I know that gradient in the temperature is, let us say, dou t by dou x in the x direction, and this gradient is advected by what? By the velocity in that direction, so it's u. So the total change, the acceleration that has happened due to this component is u dou t by dou x. Okay, change in the temperature and advected by u. Similarly, in the y direction, it is, the gradient is dou t by dou y and advected by the velocity v. So v dou t by dou y, and in z direction w dou t by dou z. Here in this case, what we have considered is the velocity itself. So it is u dou u by dou x, v dou u by dou y, w dou u by dou z. All right. Now, having said this is the acceleration, this acceleration is in spatial direction or it is convective acceleration. There is a convection. Okay. Now, by the time this fluid has moved from this location to the other location, some time has elapsed. So there is a change at this location. When you started from this location, there was some initial temperature here. So by the time you reached there, there has been some change. So change that has happened over the time is also considered by the gradient du by dt, or let us say in case of temperature it will be dt by dt, capital T, let us say temperature. So that way, when we are talking about the acceleration of the change in the property or the acceleration here, so it is, let us say, du by dt, we can write down du by dt plus, sorry, dou u by dou t plus u dou u by dou x plus v dou u by dou y plus w dou u by dou z. In this we have two components. One is your uh, temporal acceleration, then the other one is, this is your temporal acceleration and this is convective acceleration. So similarly, if you write down the accelerations in y and z directions, you will be able to write down dv by dt and dw by dt. So dv by dt, if you look at, you can write down dv by dt equals to your dou b by dou t plus u dou b by dou x plus v dou b by dou y plus w dou b by dou z. So if you observe, this u or v is the one that you are advecting. Okay, so we can write down all three, and if you write in a vectorial form, what you can write, this d by dt is the total acceleration or material derivative that we can write down as dou by dou t plus u dou u by dou x plus v dou u by dou by dou y plus w dou by dou z. So this is nothing but your total derivative d by dt. All right.